Hey gang, so we got the new numbers out here. New roadmap has just dropped, so I thought it might be fun to click through it. Still no update on the progress tracker, which again is kind of my baby, but we'll kind of get into that maybe a little bit. But I do have something else I wanted to talk about, and you might be wondering why my beard is all pushed out and I'm wearing this cowboy hat. So let's get this. Okay, so for those of you who are new, who haven't seen one of these before, what I used to do on this quite often was explore this. So this is the progress tracker where they just kind of have all the things they're working on through the year and how far they are through development. And I would kind of look at those numbers and kind of try to divine just based on what I know and what I've heard and what I've seen, how far along something actually was in the process just based on these numbers. Was surprisingly reliable, but they've kind of put this on ice, and I guess I could just do this now. Normally I'd have caveats at the beginning of this, but if I'm not doing the progress tracker, I don't need to do the caveats. Just merging the Squadron 42 and the PU teams together. You have all these teams, all these people that haven't worked together before working together. They're kind of totally restructuring the way that the whole project, so Squadron 42 is now part of Star Citizen, and they're just kind of building it out as they release Squadron 42. So they kind of have a whole new leadership things. People like Todd Pappy have gone away, who was kind of the brains behind the PU up until this point in the project. And so with all of that restructuring, the whole process of planning out how these teams will be working, what their priorities will be, what their sprints will be like, all of that is taking a lot longer than it usually is. So usually by now we would have like the first numbers and we'd be able to say, oh, okay, now they're working on this. This one will probably stretch out. This one won't. Now we don't have that. We might not have that until after 323 releases. So mid-April or maybe even into May, which at that point, when it's almost halfway through the year and you haven't released the progress tracker, maybe the progress tracker wasn't as important to this stage in the development as we all thought. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the roadmap roundup. I'm basically just going to do the roadmap roundup. So what I usually do is do the roadmap roundup, look at the release view, just kind of compare it to the roadmap roundup, see what's new, what's changed, what's dropped. And then we just sort of do a long form on the deliverables view. So with the deliverables view out of the picture, the bulk of what I would talk about is gone. So let's go ahead and start with the roadmap roundup. Notable changes for April 3rd, 2024, release view. The following features have been added to release view targeting 323.0 release. Fauna, Copion. Wonder if that's a pun. Like copium. Anyway, populating the persistent universe of the Copion, an aggressive, agile animal that travels in packs. You'll find them in a variety of areas, from grassy fields to lurking in the darkness of caves. No thank you. Fauna, Marak. Populating the persistent universe of the Marak, a passive flying bird-like creature. Maraks live in flocks and are often found near lush green environments. So one thing I wanted to say right here with the flying animal. So right here I wanted to make a point about Boyds and Floyds. So people are, I think, kind of confusing what that is. So Boyds and Floyds aren't a type of creature. I mean, like a category of creature. It's a type of artificial intelligence. So originally when it was made back in like the 90s, Boyds and Floyds were models, simple AI models with very few directions, because some scientists were trying to figure out how birds would flock and how fish would go together in schools, and kind of the rules on that, because it seems like chaos, but they all managed to stay together. And so they had simple rules that each individual Boyd would need to stay no closer to another Boyd than X and no further away than Y. And they try to avoid like dangers or something like that. And so you'd get like a realistic motion of birds and fish in that manner. And so that AI has been adopted over and over and over again for games. And they've now implemented that type of AI in the Maroc, I'm assuming. One interesting thing about Copian is that you can find them if they're lone. If they're traveling alone, they'll run away from you. They're scared. But the second they're in like a pack of like 3 to 10 or something like that, they become very aggressive, and it's a lot more scary. They will actively hunt you. So they will run and try to get their pack and come back and eat you. Just be aware. New missions, creature hunting. New missions that require players to locate, kill, and retrieve valuable parts of creatures roaming the environment. So real quick here, I want to say that even though they have the Copian and the Maroc here, I would not be at all shocked if they snuck the Boreal Stalker, which is basically the Hoth Wampa, was it Sasquatch thing that lives on Microtech, or the Stormval, the space whale that lives on Orison. Wouldn't be surprised they snuck those in there. I don't know about the Boreal Stalker, but actually I could show you this. So they did some work on the Boreal Stalker back in 2021. This is the character art and tech team, which when the tech team was involved, they were typically involved in animation. And our assumption back in 2021, obviously the pandemic was raging, was that they couldn't implement it because the servers wouldn't allow the AI. You'd find a bunch of Boreal Stalkers T-posing out on rocks, and that would make them far less scary. They might sneak them in here because Jared was saying there would be some surprises, and I would not be shocked if in similar places as you're finding these things, you find a couple other creatures they didn't mention, because I'm sure the artists and the animators have been having a blast making monsters. So new missions, creature hunting will be part of that. The following cards have been added to release view, targeting a 323.x release. So we pretty much knew there would be a 323.x. This is just confirming it. It means 4.0, 1.0 is probably not coming this year. I would assume 323.x would probably be June, July, if I had to guess. It really depends on how quick they bust out 323 and how well it's working. If it's working really well, 323.x could be quick on its heels, but usually you could expect about a month and a half lag on those. Vehicle modularity, this is a big one. Implementing the ability to swap modular sections of certain vehicles to change their function. This initial release contains the torpedo and cargo room modules for the Aegis Retaliator, with additional modules and vehicles to be added in the future. And we'll get into that. Aegis Retaliator, Gold Standard. Updating the Aegis Retaliator to Gold Standard, including the introduction of modular rooms. The torpedo and cargo rooms will be available in this initial release, with more to come in the future. That's all for this week. No progress tracker updates this week as work continues on long-term planning. For further insights, blah, 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 blah. So there we go. That's pretty much it for this. Short, but some really big things in there. So let's go ahead and look at this. So characters, I'm kind of surprised they didn't put the monsters under characters, but whatever. We're going to get the new character customizer. So beards, hair color, wide variety of faces, new hairs. It'll be pretty cool. Might actually be able to make something that really looks like yourself rather than a rough approximation. Distribution centers, still tentative. I would say this one's going to move to confirmed or committed pretty soon, just because all they're releasing for the 323 initial patch is just what's above ground, and a lot of that I would assume is using pre-existing assets, even though the structure itself, like the overall structure, the outside is new. That's easier to do than the interiors, and they've got a lot of interiors. So I would expect that to move to committed pretty soon. AI, the Copian and the Maroc, you can kind of see the little pictures here. They got, kind of looks like a cross between a pelican and a pterodactyl. It's kind of cool looking. And the Copian, you can kind of see it right there. It's got 4 eyes. looks like a reptile. Let's see. Nope, it doesn't say anything. Sometimes they'll occasionally say something different. They've gotten away from that, though. Let's look at gameplay. FPS loot screen. That's looking good. Creature hunting. You can see they've got the Copion right there. So, I mean, they're not huge, but actually, I guess you could think that they're about Rufus's size, and he's like a 80-pound Doberman. So, yeah, roughly medium to large dog sized. Item banks. This will be a big one for anyone that is a sub or has other items that they've purchased in game. I think you can also just store FPS items there, so they don't have to be sub items. If you loot like an F-55 or something like that, like the light machine gun, you could put it in the item bank and then go somewhere else and it'll be available there. I lost a ton of guns that I looted this time because I just kind of stored them on a ship, and then I'd have a crash or some bug would take me out, and I'd lose all those guns I've been spending like 2 years looting. And I was just like, there's got to be a better way. Item banks might be the easier way or the better way. Arena Commander, Miner's Lament. That's weird because Miner's Lament is already in there. I think it's because it's open to all Arena Commander flight game modes. But it wouldn't strike me as a really great combat arena. I don't know. It could be. A lot of asteroids. It's a great little race. It's a very technical racetrack, but I think combat, there's just too much stuff around. Maybe a knife fight. I don't know. You're a big dogfighter. You let me know if that's the type of map you'd want to dogfight on. Engineering experimental mode. Definitely got a few carnies that are really looking forward to that one. I'm going to be doing the engineering experimental mode just because as the captain of the ship, you should really know how to fix your ship. Grav Royale. Not as excited about that one, but I'm not much of a racer as it is. This is racing gravlet vehicles, which at the moment the only gravlet vehicles we have are bikes, and I don't know, they're fun to fly, but did they need their own mode? I don't know. Might try it out. Might think it's fun. Who knows? Arena Commander custom lobbies. That'll be a fun one to play with, to be able to both practice and like set up one-on-ones and tournaments and things like that. That's pretty cool. Personal and instance hangars, big deal. Mobiglass rework, huge. Map system, which they just showed off on Inside Star Citizen today. Cargo hauling, I think they're talking about that tomorrow on Friday's show. Blockade Runner, new dynamic event where players defend shipments of Quantanium from Ninetales piracy. That could be fun. And I think they were saying that was going to be a two sides thing. So you could take missions for the Ninetales or the good guys. And so far we haven't had that. You'd have people that would basically be role-playing pirates that would just kind of be crapping on the event and trying to blow up people, so they'd be acting like Ninetales, which is fine because not everybody wants to be a lawful player, but they couldn't do it within the game mechanics. I think this one is actually going to have it in the game mechanics, so look forward to that. Visor and lens HUD rework, they were showing that off. Was that today or was that last week? I don't know. They showed it off recently. We'll just put it that way. Player interaction experience. They haven't had a show on this yet, but we saw it at SitCon and everything, so we know how it works. EVA Tier 2 is going to be amazing. A little worrying that all of these are still tentative, but they look like they're pretty far along. We've seen them in Evocati, which I can talk about now, and they look decent. Haven't seen the interaction. It might have been there and I just didn't notice. Haven't had a chance to try out EVA as much as I've been talking how excited I am for that feature. Reputation Hostility will be pretty big. Star Map they showed off. Freight Elevators they've showed off 2 or 3 weeks ago. Ships and Vehicles. Vehicle Modularity in the Aegis Retaliator. Master Modes, which everybody's super excited about. Dynamic Crosshair, that's if you're wearing a helmet, you'll get that little crosshair on your screen that actually works. So In most games, the crosshair just stays in the dead center of the screen, and so no matter what you move, it's almost like mechanical. On this one, it really is kind of trying to read where your gun is, because in Star Citizen, there's different positions you can have. Like if you reload your gun and you're putting in the new mag, you'll see the crosshair like go up and out of the screen because that's where it is. So again, typical CIG, they're not gonna, if they can't, if they have the opportunity to not fake something, they're going to go that route, even if it's needlessly complex. Core tech, volumetric clouds updates, so make everything pretty. Image upscaling and replication layer updates. So I thought it might be fun to kind of go through some of the modular ships. A couple of these, they're not technically modular, like there's a part that can pull out or pop on different things, but the majority of these are truly modular. Like in order to change the dynamic and function of the ship, you can pull out a whole room and put in a different room. Like with the Retaliator, you could pull off the torpedoes and change it from a bomber into a cargo mover just by changing one of the rooms, which is cool. So we could get into that. So the Retaliator bomber, more than just the cargo and the torpedoes, the Tally is also going to have like a dropship room, which I think will fit like 10 or 15 guys in, and it's got 2 of those rooms, so it could be a pretty substantial dropship at some point. They had a few others planned, or at least not, I wouldn't say planned, but they were at least like theory crafting ones out. I could see there being a medical one. I would not be shocked if the gold standard has fewer guns. At the moment, the Retaliator has, I think, 6 or 7 turrets, and none are controllable by the pilot. So you have to have crew if you want to shoot guns. I would assume they're going to cut down on those a little bit, because I mean, it's kind of based on the Strato Fortress, which was covered with turrets in real life, World War II bomber. But yeah, it's a bit much. This thing's the size of a Constellation. It has a standing crew of like 8. It's ridiculous. It needs to be like 4. So I would assume they're going to cut down the turrets, probably the littler ones that are in the back. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll see. The Aurora. So originally the Aurora was not supposed to be like 6 different ships. It was supposed to be modular in the sense that you'd say, well, I want this one to be able to run cargo, so I'm going to pull I think it's the bed underneath and put in the cargo module, and now it's the Aurora CL, the Clipper. Or I want it to be the Legionnaire version, so I'm going to pull the small stack up here, the sensors, and put in the 4-pack missile launcher, the bigger engine, and the shields and stuff like that. So originally the Aurora was supposed to be super modular, and you could basically sort of kit bash the ship that you wanted, which was kind of the draw of the Aurora versus the Mustang, which was just kind of out of the box. This is what you get. They've kind of gone away from that now, and I don't know if they'd go back, but that was originally what the Aurora was supposed to be. Caterpillar. 2 modular things on this. So each cargo section here is modular. So you can pull this out and put in like a salvage module, medical module, people mover module. They're talking about a couple others. They had a whole bunch of ideas for what these modules would be. So that was supposed to be modular. Another thing that's supposed to be modular is the command module right here. Is actually a whole separate ship that can break off and fly on its own. So if you've ever gone into the Caterpillar and you've kind of been like, this thing's kind of self-contained, because I mean, there's a bed, there's a little tiny kitchen. I think there's even a toilet down near the back. It's got 2 levels to it, but it kind of seems self-contained, and you could run it with the entire crew of the Caterpillar could fit in the command module. That's modular. Like, that thing's supposed to come off, so we'll see. Maybe when they have Drake's year, or maybe just later in the year, they'll tackle that. It'd be kind of cool. Carrick, that's a bad picture. I'll see if I can find a better picture. Well, you can kind of see it with this one. Let's just go download image. So if you look right here, you can sort of see that it's cargo bays. It's got 3 of them. Those are modular, and it can actually drop them off. And one of the original ideas that we had, one of the things that sold me on the Carrick, was that one of these could be a cargo module, one of these could be a science module, and it could actually break off and be like a little science station or outpost that you could leave on a planet. So the Carrick could come up, drop a couple people off in this outpost. They could run around, do things, and have a place where they could log or gather resources or store a vehicle or whatever, while the Carrick goes back up in orbit and just kind of does something else with the Pisces and stuff. So those are supposed to be modular. So yeah, I mean, there's a fair number of ships. This is cheating a little bit. The Starfarer, well, this is the Gemini, so you can't really see it, but you know what the Starfarer looks like. It's got these big oil tanks on the back, or fuel tanks on the back. The original idea was that those could pull off, and rather than putting on a fresh or empty or full fuel tank, you could put on like a cargo pod or something like that. A few people even concepted out one that could carry Furies, but those rails back there that the fuel pods sit on were originally supposed to be modular. The whole idea was that this thing was just kind of a big freighter, and its main purpose that the military used it for was a refueler, but you could easily switch out these components, these modules, and it would become something else. Like if you put in the cargo pods, now it's a big military cargo mover. I really like that Fury idea. I think they should do that. The Endeavor, of course, is the king of modularity. So, I mean, pretty much everything on this ship, the front breaks off and is its own ship, while you've got kind of the command center on the back of it. It's got all of these different things here, like the particle accelerator, the telescope array. It's got a hangar, the hospital, the farms, but all of those are modular. So I mean, everything about this ship was meant to be modular. So this one's one that we weren't going to see until we saw modularity. We're seeing modularity now, and I don't think the Endeavor is just around the corner, because it's an incredibly complex ship with a lot of game loops that aren't in now. But when they start talking about bringing the science game loop in, this might not be too far ahead. I've been saying for a while now that I think Misk's year might be next, just because this year it's RSI. The Misk ships, almost all of them, except for the ones that they just dropped, are all way behind just kind of the standards for the ships in Star Citizens now. They're all old. Few of them have buttons that actually work. They don't have like the modern pads. The metrics don't really work on them. They're just old. But once we get the Misk lineup, expect to see the Odyssey, and we might see this. And I still say the command module here looks a lot like the Odyssey, and I can't imagine that's an accident. Could you imagine if like the front 2/3 of the Odyssey was actually the command module for the Endeavor? That would be pretty cool. So the Crucible, this one, again, kind of like a Starfarer, is a little bit of a cheat. This garage right here, which in theory can hold, the way that they were saying they were going to size it was that you could land a Hornet in it, and that's sort of what they were thinking. Just given when this ship was concepted, expected to grow a bit. How big this hangar will be, who knows? But the idea was that you could actually drop the hangar off. So you can see this one's flying around without it, and get to the bigger image here. So you can see that this one has the hangar there, this one doesn't. That's by design. Like, this thing is modular. Like, you could drop it off and have like a garage on a planet while you're out fixing an Idris with the main body of the ship. So again, modular. Keep an eye out for that. MPUV. So this one's, of course, one of the tiny ones, but you have the MPUV personnel and the MPUV cargo. That's just this little thing back here. One of the things they were showing off at CitizenCon was the MPUV with the weird thing sitting up on the nose, which I think that's what people were focusing on. What they should have been focusing on was the fact that it was just this shape and not the module, which means that they were going to bring modularity to the MPUV, which is the whole point of the MPUV, that this right here is basically just a life raft, the personnel one. And the cargo doesn't really carry all that much, so that's kind of superfluous. But this thing can move, like you saw in the Whole Sea commercial, can move the big crates around, which is really what the MPUV is about. Is it's just sort of a modular mover. It's kind of a move anything type thing. But that one's modular. 600i. So the 600i, let's see if I can find a picture here. So not the best picture, but the 600i is modular too. And this might be why the 600i went on ice, is that they wanted to complete the Retaliator and get modularity up and running. And then they'd tackle the 600i once they had that working. But this section, well, in the original design, this section right here was modular, and you could either go with the Explorer version, which would pull out like 2 or 3 stories and would carry a rover. Now it carries a tonk, or it can carry a tonk. It had the cargo in it and kind of this scanning room. You could pull that and put in the touring version, which had staterooms and I think like a dining area or like a lounge area. They kind of screwed up the internals of this ship. This was sort of the first big luxury ship they did. And it's pretty, but it's so disjointed. It's kind of useless. One of the biggest ships you can truly solo though, but I think in the new version the modularity is actually in the back. I'd have to go back and watch. I think it was a ship shape or something like that where they were talking about it. It's a couple years back, but I think they shifted the modularity area to the back, which is a good thing in my opinion. Anyway, that's modular. We might get different kinds, like think of a medical 600i or a cargo dedicated version. Originally the 600i was a cargo mover, and then Origin turned it into a luxury craft. So we could be seeing that at some point. And then the Galaxy, of course, is modular in the sense that there's currently, that we know of, a cargo version, a medical version, and a refinery version. So once again, that whole room just slides out, and you can slide in a new room, make it a completely different ship or a completely different purpose. I think there's a military one too. Isn't there a combat one? I might be forgetting one. But yeah, Galaxy is out there too. We might be seeing the Galaxy by the end of the year. Long shot, but we could be, because they seem to really be flying along with the Polaris. One of the rumors going around is that the Polaris is actually going to be an NPC ship in Arena Commander for 323. Like, they won't be releasing it to the players, but they didn't release the Idris to players, and people were still jumping into it and stealing it. It'll only be an Arena Commander, so people won't be able to steal it and troll you out in the verse. They'll only be able to troll you in Arena Commander. But that's still really cool. That's far enough along that NPCs can use it. So exciting times, y'all. And that's all I got for this one. So yeah, you got any opinions? You think I missed anything on these modular ships, or if you think I was cheating on them, let me know. Like and subscribe. We're actually closing in on 1,000 people, which I did not think I would get 1,000 subs on this weird little channel where y'all just listen to me talk on this. But anyways, catch me next time.